really went at my own pace. They went live before me, and I was completely fine with that. I was just putting along, kind of breaking even, win some, lose some. And then the last trade of the month was like a 5R winner. The troubles start to come, right? Then all these mistakes start to pile up. And then the coronavirus hits and you're like, just throw up your hands. I would definitely say it was psychological because I'm already a conservative guy. And then you see, the quickest sell-off in U.S. market history when I really had my aha moment that my position sizes were too small. That I was just gun shy. I am very selective. I usually only take 2 to 3 future trades a week. It took about 3 or 4 months of demo. It's important that you're not alone. It's the difference maker because I think it's very, very easy when you're by yourself to give up. I'm incredibly selective. Kind of scanning 2 to 2.5 hours a day. I do my trading first, and my task list for my other businesses is over here. The Holy Grail is right here.
Exactly,
right here.
Between your ears.
Just important to be consistent, but to be consistent, 3 to 6 months in a row, then I'll start to feel good. When I can do that, I have one business I want to shut off, right?
Hello, everybody. Hello, Steve. Welcome to this trader chat. I've invited Steve because he's one of my role models of a student who is treating trading as a business. And this is really important, and I can see it in the success he's already having early on in his process. So I know Stephen really well, like his personality is that he's very focused, he's very target-oriented, he has very reasonable targets, which is important for trading, and most traders have targets that are way too high. And he's got a great positive state of mind. So that as such is already an edge. Stephen lives in the US, in Arkansas, and he's got a good number of years experience, successful experience trading stocks and ETFs. So Stephen, you attended my workshop in a little bit more than a year ago, 1.5 years ago. And I know that you went through a tremendous trader development since then. And you started trading a real money account. So you started to trade the live markets in December of 2019, right? So that's about 8 months ago. So it took you about 8 months to start trading the markets after the workshop. And now we are another 8 months later. And I would just be interested, how did that go?
How did the live trading go, or how did the? It's been quite a journey ever since the beginning, right, to the transition. And to talk about the transition real quick, I think it's very important to be around other like-minded traders, right, for motivation. But I also thought it was very important that I really went at my own pace. A lot of traders in the same group in March, they jumped the gun, or I wouldn't say jumped the gun, but they went live before me. And I was completely fine with that because I wanted to feel comfortable with, my process and what I did. So I, back in September when I was simulating, and I said, I just want to simulate for as many months as I can, make as few mistakes as possible before I feel comfortable in the live. That's all I was trying to do, was just stick to the rules, right? So then December comes, and I have a great first month. And of course, I'm like, oh man, this is going to be awesome, right? So December was a great month.
So what does it mean, a great month? How many hours did you do, for example?
Well, I think it is 6R my first month, which for me was pretty good because, my goal was really only 7-8R per month. I don't like weekly goals because I believe that puts too much pressure. Too much negative pressure. So I was like, okay, first month was like 6R, had some big winners. It was feeling great. But the interesting thing about December was, I was just putting along, kind of breaking even, win some, lose some. And then the last trade of the month was like a 5R winner. And it's amazing how, things change so quickly when you can just kind of have 1R winner. So December was a good month, and even January wasn't as good as a month, but it was still profitable. And of course, I was thinking in my head, well, I can do this, right? This is going to be easy. Then, the troubles start to come, right? Then all these mistakes start to pile up. The
So
coronavirus.
that's in which months did the mistakes come up in February or?
Yeah, I would really start to say that in January wasn't as good, but I was still happy with my results. Okay. But I was starting to really pay attention to what kind of mistakes I'm making, right? Like, how can I improve? How can I go from 5R to 10R, right?
Okay, one moment. I
So,
just wanted to say something here, because my experience with students and my own, that includes my own experience. When you actually take the decision to trade the live market, so you take the decision to put money on the line, and as well your life dream to come through, right? And I remember we had a call back then, right? I know it's a psychological very important step. And typically that involves not that you have a winning months, right? So typically it's kind of you have got a couple of losing months and at most break even. So I was really very impressed that you actually started with a winning month. And I mean, the goal I set out for everybody is have 5 hours per month, right, as a minimum, consistent minimum hour target, and you achieved that. So for 2 months in a row. So that's quite outstanding, and I think you did very well going on your own pace, right, in trader development. That's important, and not getting confused with what others are doing. Well, another reason that you have very reasonable targets, right, and can evaluate where you are and how much time you need.
mhm.
Yeah. So
Yep.
so then,
No,
yeah,
go ahead.
and then the mistakes came up, right? They started to creep in.
Well, and the mistakes were probably already there. I probably just started realizing it when, the R multiple started going down, right? And I always like to look at things on a week by week basis, but really I prefer to look at it on a monthly basis. So one thing I started tracking was, on a monthly basis, I started writing down all my mistakes and say, okay, next week I'm not going to do this, and just one at a time. And I think that's the best way. If you have a list of 4 or 5 mistakes you're doing, try to fix them one at a time, because it's going to be overwhelming if you're, trying to do it all at once. One of the biggest mistakes that I was noticing, one of the first mistakes I was noticing, is that I was trailing too tightly, right? I was what I call choking my trade out. Okay. So I couldn't wait to move my stop to break even. So I didn't take a loss on a trade, and then I immediately get picked off, and then the trade would go in the direction that I intended. So when this started happening, I'm counting. So every week, every month, I'm saying, okay, how many mistakes did I make? And then how many R multiples did that cost me? Right. So I'm tracking the number of mistakes, I'm tracking the R multiples. And I look at it, I'm like, well, dang, I can just fix this one thing and then do a little better and then move on. Okay. So that was the first very, very obvious mistake in the live demo, because when real money is on the line, emotions are involved. You don't want to take losses. So just couldn't wait to, trail that 20%, raise stop to break even, whatever the case is. I noticed when I fixed that mistake, the results were better, because there were several trades I know, the old Steven would have been picked off on, and then the new Steven just kind of relaxed. -1R is not a big deal. Several -1R is not a big deal. You just have to let it happen as long as it was a good setup. Okay. So then I started relaxing my stop loss a little bit to give it room, because a lot of times I would see your sample trades that you would post, and I noticed that you always had I just want to give it as much breathing room as possible, right, to give it room to run. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I need to change my mindset here.
Mm-hmm. Well, following the exit algorithm, right?
Following the exit algorithm,
not trying to shortcut.
Not trying to shortcut. But, sometimes even the exit algorithm, you almost had to use a little discretion, because if you raise your stop to break even, like as soon as the CB hit, but then the CB was just like right above your entry, well, then you have a decision to make, right? Then you say, okay, well, there hasn't been enough moves, so I just need to leave it where it is. So I believe I fixed that, and I was like, okay, there were a couple trades that confirmed that was fixed. All right. So another thing that I noticed, and this mistake is still lingered until probably about a month or two ago, is not taking full position sizing, right? Not taking that full 1%, because I looked back at all the months and I'm thinking, okay, I'm taking a half R or 0.7 R. And sometimes when you're dealing with futures contracts, you just cannot get it right at the 1 R, right? But I was noticing where I was leaving probably the most money on the table is because, I was not taking a full position size. I would say, okay, instead of $500 risk, or instead of $1,000 risk, I'm gonna take a $500 risk, right? And I might do that because I just lost 2 in a row. I don't want to lose another whole R. So you kind of have this ebb and flow, this kind of back and forth with yourself of like, do I continue to stick to the process? I would say that was probably, over even year to date, has been my single biggest mistake, is just not taking a full 1% position size, because it cost me quite a bit. And I do have a positive expectancy with my trades historically. So I'm like, well, I basically did the math and I'm like, Steven, you can hit your 7R per month if you would just take full position sizes, on average, maybe not every month. Some be a little bit more, some be a little less. So I came to the conclusion that I was really not that far off my goal. My kind of personal psychology, my personal emotions were getting the best of me. I believe this is always kind of part of my personality. Even though I'm a younger guy, I'm always very conservative, right? A very conservative trader, very conservative risk management. But when the coronavirus hit too, that rattled me a little bit. And
so that was mid-March, right?
Yeah, it started actually in mid-February, and it didn't bottom until the end of March. But even when it bottomed, I didn't know that. And when you see the market moving 10% in a day, even I lived through the 2008, I didn't see that in 2008. It rattled me. It really did. Because when you're using a ton of leverage, which I wasn't used to because I've never really traded futures before, I just had to take a step back and be like, you know what? I'm not sure what's going on here with the market. I need to take a little bit of time off. I did trade some leveraged ETFs because that made me feel more comfortable. But still, I pretty much took most of March and about half of April off once the sell-off started. And it was hard mentally to get back to where I was in that good place in December and January, because you have a great plan. You feel like you're moving along, you make a couple mistakes, push you back, and then the coronavirus hits and you're like, okay, I can fix these and get back to where I want to be. And then the coronavirus hits and you're like, just throw up your hands.
So what was the impact of Corona? Was it more a psychological impact on you, or what was it? What do you think?
Oh, I would definitely say it was psychological, because I'm already a conservative guy. And then you see, the quickest sell-off in U.S. market history. And it just completely just kind of shook me, confused me from a leverage standpoint. Like, okay, when is it time to get back in? Most legs like that usually take a second leg down. So then even if you get back in on the bounce, you're just waiting for one day, just boom, for it to happen again and fall back over.
So basically some fear crept in, right? I mean, that was with me, because I have never experienced such a huge sell-off either, right? And I had the very same thing. I mean, some fear crept in, and I didn't know if maybe the banks would close, right, in Europe and things like that. And I was bringing down my trading activity quite a bit. So for some time,
Right.
I didn't even trade precious metals anymore. I didn't trade U.S. equities because I thought, oh, markets might close for a week. So it's basically the fear factor, right? That confuses, and which is not good for a rule-based discretionary trader. Basically,
I would completely agree. Like, the fear took over for like 2 months, and I wasn't sure what to do. So I just I just kind of sat on my hands and said, you know what, I'm really not going to do much. I'll trade some stocks or some leverage ETF, but I don't need to at this time trade something that's 50 times leverage.
Okay, yeah. And then you said, and then you wrote in an email that that you had to lay out some rules because you were leaving too much money on the table. So what exactly did you do, or what happened?
Yeah, so at that point in time, I believe when I emailed you, that was when I really had my aha moment that my position sizes were too small.
Mm-hmm.
That I was just gun shy, right? And part of my personality mixed with the coronavirus, I was just gun shy coming back into taking full position sizes.
Yeah.
So I had to, make a rule and make a commitment to myself that if you can't take a full position size, then you don't need to trade.
Okay.
Because once you stop taking full position size, then you kind of aren't really, then you're kind of just playing around a little bit. Oh, a little here, a little there. And then it stops being a business. So when I realized once I could complete that, I could get very close to my target if I would just stop shooting myself in the foot. That was kind of the aha moment I had.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So now you're more kind of you're following your structure, right? Either you can trade a full position size or you don't trade, right? And I know you're putting a lot of focus, like I know that from previous discussions, you're putting a lot of focus on high quality trades, right? If the trade is kind of a trade that is a little bit borderline, it's good, maybe better than good. So it's just, well, you don't take it, right? It goes a little bit in that direction.
Usually, if it's good, I will take it. If it's on a lower time frame, it has to be great for me to take it. But if it's a good trade, I'll take it. I try not to do much over analyzing, but I am very selective. I usually only take 2 to 3 future trades a week, so I'm very selective in what I take. It has to be harmonic and all that good stuff. I mean, I have to feel right right before I'm about to place a trade.
Okay. So you basically have two trading games, right? One is you're trading the higher time frames. And the other one is you're trading lower time frames. I think you trade down to the 5-minute chart,
Correct.
right? So can you explain a little bit what does lower time frames mean for you?
Lower time frame to me is the 15-second, the 1 minute, and the 5-minute. So all my futures trading is usually the 15 to 60 minute, but I'll trade the 5-minute if it's a very good setup. I learned, and this is even going back to when I was simulating, that the 1 minute and the 15 seconds that I just wasn't profitable. And I believe I took a good enough sample size to find that out. So I just came to the conclusion it's not working. I don't really want to babysit the trades anyways. So I just cut it and focus on something a little bit higher time frame at the same time that limits my overall trading opportunities.
Okay. So
which I'm fine with.
So you trade the 5, 15, and 60 with futures, right? And everything higher, I guess it's then 240 daily, maybe weekly. How do you trade those time frames?
Leveraged ETFs. So if I see something like, for example, silver made a phenomenal run, I caught most of that with the leveraged ETF and was feeling pretty good about it.
So that means you're analyzing the future charts, right? And whenever you get an entry signal, well, then you execute the trade with a different vehicle, which is a leveraged ETF, right? But you're following your entry and your stops. You're following your futures charts, right?
And sometimes that can pose a challenge because the chart of a leveraged ETF doesn't always look the same as the chart of a future ETF. But I try to match them the best I can. But correct, I am taking the system signals from the higher time frames in futures, buying leverage.
Okay. And which asset classes are you trading, or have you traded in the last couple of months?
I mean, I really trade all of them. There's really nothing that I don't trade. I trade the U.S. equities. I trade the energies and the metals. I don't typically trade the bonds and I usually don't trade palladium just because it's usually so expensive because of the price and the leverage. So I would say I traded 12 futures contracts, different instruments.
Okay. Let's talk about your trader development, because you've really developed really nicely during just a couple of months. What do you think if you look back now, like after the workshop, you started to trade simulate at first, right? To learn to flawlessly execute the rules of the systems. What do you think? How important was that to your trader growth, or to understanding how the systems work?
Well, I thought it was incredibly important to start in that kind of Forex tester because it just slowed everything down. And naturally, when you're in the Forex tester, you're really just trying to spot the patterns, right? You're trying to get them down because you can read it in a book and then you go to Forex tester, it's really slowed down. So you're just trying to identify it. There was a big difference the biggest difference when I went from the Forex tester to the simulation, because I'm like, wow, these are real-time charts. They're moving very quickly, even though it's not real money, right? That was kind of a big transition. I was finding.
You mean from simulation to demo trading?
Demo trading, excuse me. Yes. Yeah. Yes. That was probably the biggest kind of transition, eye-opening transition. So when I started in the simulation, I was not doing well. I was losing money kind of thing. And I think it took like probably until month 3 of the simulation, maybe even month 4, which was September, till some things started to click. Right? You start to, I think the most important thing is when you move to demo, when you're moving to live markets, I've always been a fan of just being as observant as possible, right? Just observing everything, seeing what you see, start to try to remember what looks familiar. So it took about 3 or 4 months of demo for all of a sudden this familiarity to start to kick in. And then I started, doing better with demo. So then I said, okay, now that I'm at this point, let's do this for 3 months, no rush. There were other traders that were already live. I was fine with that. And just 3 months until December, and then I'll have to just rip the Band-Aid off and go live.
Well, you mentioned the other traders. I mean, we've been growing in a group setting, right? How important was this group of like-minded, committed traders for you and your growth?
I think it's incredibly important because as challenging as this is, right? Helping you overcome all your own mental hurdles, it's important that you're not alone, right? It's important that you have a support system so you can, help people out or get help in return, because, in this online world, we're all on our own little island, right? And so I think it's the difference maker, because I think it's very, very easy when you're by yourself to give up. No one knows your business plan, so no one's there to hold you accountable if you don't have anybody. That's why I joined the Mastery, is so I could continue to have that support in place to keep me on track.
That's actually one of the main mistakes I see with fellow students, to abandon a system prematurely. Right, that comes in very quickly, because learning to trade is learning to handle, to deal with your frustration, which always comes up, right? And during these phases of frustrations, a trader is basically prone to leave the system and get excited with another system. And I think a group is very important, and it helps you to stay on track, basically, right, and get motivated and learn from each other.
One thing that I made a goal to myself, even though I've tried to adjust to more of an objective system, I have not, let's just say I haven't bought any other system since I've started your workshop in March, because I am a firm believer, look, the system is a system. It's going to do what you're going to do, but it's the risk management, it's the position sizing, it's the controlling the emotions that's really going to be a difference maker for you. And if you stick with it, and once you get to that level, then you can focus on those things. But if you, say, oh, the system doesn't work, I want to try something else,
You have some, we chatted a little bit before this call, and you mentioned that you had some experience with trading with a more discretionary way, and trading as well with a 100% rule based, like with an automatic system. Would you like
Mhm.
to tell a little bit about your experience with that?
Sure. Well, I'll start with the rules base. There was another trader and I that, your system allows for quite a bit of discretion. It's got the rules, and then you have some discretions on which ones to take. So me and another trader at the very beginning of the year said, hey, let's focus on taking the discretion out and just using a rules-based system. We back tested, simulated it. We back tested, simulated, and everything, and it all looked good. And then we went. That probably took 3 months, a lot of hours. Looked perfect. And then we went to demo and realized that it wasn't practical in reality, just due to trading in the middle of the night. I'm not going to do. The position sizes were too big. I'm not going to do. So 4 months trying to create my own completely objective system, we just threw it in the trash. And honestly, I'm probably more proud of myself in that than anything, because it just, hey, if it doesn't work, you got to admit it, and you got to continue to move on.
Yeah.
So that was that. That was 4 months of my life, but I think those steps, that learning, I think that's a very necessary part of growing. I like to sometimes just take a trade with a wide stop. So usually with these discretionaries, I have a mini, so I can have a wide stop with the objective of using similar rules based to what you have in your system, trying to let it run until Friday. Just if it's still going, I let it run until Friday, and then I close it out so I don't have to hold it over the weekend. So really, my discretionary system, a lot of that knowledge comes from my stock trading, being able to analyze price action and just taking a trade with a stop with the goal to see what it can do for 3 or 4 days following exit algorithms. It's adding trades to my overall, but I still do not trade a ton because I'm incredibly selective.
Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about your, because you're such a focused and structured person. I mean, obviously you've put together a business plan, right? Or maybe let's talk about first about your other businesses. Well, I know you have you're self-employed basically, right? You have 2 other businesses running. So trading is a third business you added to your portfolio basically, right? Let's talk about this. How much time do you allocate to trading per day or per week?
So to be clear, before we even get into the business plan, my goal is to be a full-time trader really by the end of the year, or have that flexibility. Meaning if I want to cut these other things, I will. So I probably spend, kind of scanning 2 to 2.5 hours a day, or at least analyzing, stalking, we'll say at least 2. And because I have the other businesses, I believe this is a very important, I do my trading first. I do it first thing in the morning. I put it first, because I would always make that first. I would do all my other stuff first, and then if I had time, I would trade or I would scan, right? And it's funny how it works. You never have time. So if it is a priority, you will make it a priority. So I decided to make it a priority and make that the first thing I do every day. And my task list for my other businesses is over here. Mm-hmm. So trade, set up stalking list, whatever, typically come back and check it if I have a stalking list, later on, kind of mid-afternoon, see how it's going. If there's nothing going, there's nothing going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, trading is kind of your startup business, right? Your other 2 businesses are running businesses, so you get money, constant money out of that, and it basically covers your living costs and more, right? And this is what I recommend every trader. Not every trader wants to be a full-time or become a full-time trader, right? But those who want, that's what I recommend. Exactly, that's what I recommend what you do, and that comes back to the reasonable goals you have, right? Because I didn't have to tell you; you did it on your own. And this is basically, if you have a running business, well, try to work part-time, try to carve out some time to develop your trading business, right? Let it run in parallel for a year or 2, and if it works well, the more time you allocate to it. Because when I left my well-paid corporate job, right, I left from one day to another to become a full-time trader. And in hindsight, I have to say, well, that was not the ideal thing to do, right? So it's better to have a transitioning or to have passive income. I mean, that's good too. So at least that your living expenses are covered. That's quite important, I think, from a psychological point of view.
There is no pressure on me right now to pull income from trading.
Yeah.
Do I say, hey, I'm a few months behind where I originally planned? Do I wish I was a few months further along? Sure, all the time. But do I beat myself up over it? No, because I've had plenty of startups and usually nothing goes according to the original business plan.
Yeah.
And the only thing I know in life, whether you get beat up, punched in the face, whatever, and something doesn't go according to plan, just keep going, right? Keep going. Like you said, most people will look at another trading system. They'll try to buy everything on the shelf. I think that's the worst thing you can do. Just keep going, find your mistakes, see what they're costing you, and then try again the next month. And I really hit the reset button every month.
Yeah, that's basically the search for the holy grail, right? People, like a lot of traders are searching for the holy grail. They think they have it, they grab on it, and then frustration comes in and they get disappointed. Oh, it's not the holy grail. Well, it needs to be another system, right? And this is how traders start to jump around a lot, and they never really learn to trade a single system any time, right? So
the holy grail is right here.
Exactly,
right here.
Between your ears.
That's right. That's right. But very few people kind of make that connection. They they want another system, more money.
Yeah. It's more fun as well, right? Trying out something new. But
yeah,
it's not about
I
fun.
guess it is. Yeah. But you're going to set yourself up for disappointment every time.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about your business plan.
Okay.
What are your goals? What are your goals like going forward? What are your plans?
Yeah, so I really, reviewed my business plan a month ago with another trader. As you know, I meet with him weekly, and it's an accountability group, just me and him, to keep ourselves moving forward, whatever that looks like. Probably easily 4 months behind where I wanted to be, and I think the coronavirus pushed me back a couple months. I think some of my own issues pushed me back. And at the end of the day, I blame myself, but. So right now, really, my goal is by the end of December, we'll say December 31st. So 2021 is the new year, to be consistently producing AR per month, right? Consistently producing AR per month. When I can do that, I have one business I want to shut off, right? And then when I can continue to do that for another quarter or two, then I'll look at either shutting another one off or having someone else completely take it over. So for me right now, it is just important to be consistent, but to be consistent, 3 to 6 months in a row, then I'll start to feel good. From a business plan standpoint, and for anybody listening, I think it's more important, at least for me, to have monthly goals instead of weekly goals, because monthly goals, it takes the pressure off. Right? Instead of trying to produce so many R's per month or per week, it just takes the pressure off. You can have a down week, you can have 2 down weeks, but the only thing that matters is a score at the end of the game. And I score at the end of every month. And it calms me, it relaxes me. If I'm not where I want to be the 1st of September, I just start over. I try to figure out what mistakes I made, and I just keep going. Just keep going.
Very good, yeah. I know you're a very, very structured person, and that helps you a lot. It's a big edge, right? Your positive mindset, not getting frustrated, and not turning away, going forward, and following your plan.
Yep. Well, like I said earlier, it's not that I don't get frustrated, because I get plenty frustrated all the time, but it's just important to kind of take deep breaths and just say, hey, next month is another month, and just go. And that's all I know how to do, because this is what I plan to do. So I'm definitely not going to, quit, because it's not an option.
Yeah. Okay. I received a really nice quote from your last email, and I would like to read it out. That's you describing yourself. Maybe we can close the call with that. So you wrote me in your last email, I don't think there are many traders that are more committed to making this work than I am. When I get kicked in the nuts, all I know to do is to move forward and be realistic and keep improving. Focus on the process.
Yep.
That's a perfect sentence that describes you as a personality and a trader.
Yep. And I've been kicked in the nuts plenty. And I think sometimes my business experience definitely helps me with that, because if you're an entrepreneur, failure is normal. And if you can't accept it, then, being an entrepreneur isn't for you. But yes, absolutely. I couldn't, that's the way I think it's supposed to be. And I think if everybody has that mentality, you'll eventually get there. Might not get there on the month you want. I'm not going to get there on the month I want, but that's okay. All right. Because great things come to those who work hard and are patient.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thank you very much for having
Yeah.
joined this Trader Chat. It's a very interesting, I'm sure it's very, very interesting to students, and seeing you as a role model as well as a good example. And well, we stay in touch anyway.
Of course we will. Thanks.
Thank you for having joined. Bye-bye.
Okay, bud. Have a good weekend.
You too.